But we have a very complex system, Mr. Speaker, a very complex system. And the decision that this government makes is that you are going to let the future of that complex system be decided by one or two questions on a referendum. It's preposterous. It's preposterous. Is this government intending for this to fail and therefore delaying funding of transit yet another 3, 4, 5 years, making it worse, meaning there's going to be more congestion in the Lower Mainland, and no improvements whatsoever. So here we go. Now we have this pathetic idea of having a referendum which has a good chance of failing, which means that we will then, by the time that happens, if it's June of 2015, if it happens then, we'll have had 5 years of no action whatsoever. So, Mr. Speaker, I think it's another terrible idea by this government. I think it's very unfortunate because those that suffer are those that take our transit, rely on it for work and so on. Costs are going up, services going down. There's been delay.
Member for Vancouver Falls Creek. I didn't see the signal. Carry on. Member for Vancouver Falls Creek.
There are many arguments about the place of referenda in political decisions, but in my mind the most important issue here is it was a commitment made in an election campaign. And any government should take with utmost seriousness such commitments, and for this reason I endorse this current Bill 23. Referenda are very powerful tools with the capacity for great good and the potential for not so good. This is why the management of this process is extremely important. In a series of policies such as the Livable Region Strategy, the Growth Management Strategy, and others, a consensus has developed that urban growth would not be in a consistently low-density form that would spread across the whole valley, but would rather be in denser nodes that would leave areas of farm and wilderness intact for future generations. Although several generations of regional and municipal politicians have, through consensus, crafted this vision, it has never been submitted to the public for their opinion. The referendum could be doing a great service to the future of the region by allowing the citizens to indicate whether or not they endorse this vision. So I want to support this Bill 23. I support the Minister. Let us work together to make this referendum a success. Thank you.
Thank you, Member. Member for Vancouver Hastings.
And so we have a piece of legislation now where, originally the Liberals said, we're going to do this at the municipal elections in 2014. We're going to have this vote then. But that seems to have fallen by the wayside somewhat at this point. And now we could have a standalone vote, maybe in June of 2015, maybe in the 2018 municipal election, assuming we go to 4-year terms, maybe 22. Who knows? Maybe not 2018, maybe 2022. It's totally unclear because the government just does not know what it's doing with this. And I suspect that continues to be the case. We don't have any clarity around the question. We don't have, again, the minister, probably because he's scared to try to ask the Premier what the question should be, is again trying to get the Mayor's Council to make some recommendations about the question or questions. But even with that, while the Mayor's Council is being asked to make recommendations, they're not being told that they get to set the question. Because at the end of the day, every recommendation they make, if they make any, could be thrown out in a minute by the Minister, and the Minister could write a whole new question, depending presumably on what orders he gets from the Premier. So we have a situation where this bill, Bill 23, does nothing to alleviate the chaos that was created by the Premier and the BC Liberals when they introduced this idea of this referendum. Nothing is being done to resolve this situation. We continue to have a chaotic situation. So if you really want to do this properly, what you do is you empower the mayors, you give them the power that they've been omitted in Bill 22, the governance bill that we dealt with the other day, that says they don't have budget control over budgets. You give them that control, including the authority and the ability to make some decisions about revenue streams. And we do ourselves no favors by saying we're going to have a vote on some undetermined question in 2015 or maybe 2018 or maybe 2022. That's not fixing the problem. And the challenge it creates is the longer that the Liberal government drags this thing out, all of that is lost time for effective and thoughtful planning. So, Honourable Speaker, it really is time to talk about fixing the problem. It's not time to talk about another delay. It's not time to talk about a game. It's a bad piece of legislation. It should be defeated. Sadly, I'm sure it will probably go ahead. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you, member. Member for West Vancouver Sea to Sky.
Our government is committed to putting before the electors of Metro Vancouver an opportunity to approve the source and type of funding formula that those electors prefer in order to fund future activities, incremental activities of TransLink, be it roads, bridges, buses, clearly sea buses, sky trains, light rail, subways, cycling infrastructure, pedestrian infrastructure, and any other innovative opportunities, both existing and new, that will come forward. Clearly, the taxpayer, the one taxpayer, is a key stakeholder in this dialogue and has the right to have a say, to make their desires known. These taxpayers, be they seniors or students, commerce or industry, deserve a system that works. And clearly, this is important to everyone. We are at a unique time and a unique opportunity to work together to create that system for the benefit of all. We're at a turning point, and this bill will give the communities the tools to do what needs to be done in their own interest and in the interest of the region. I'm certainly happy to support this progressive initiative. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Surrey Green Timbers.
What is happening is we now have a referendum that is supposed to fix the specifics around the transportation system, because it has been stalled for a significant period of time, and now what we have is a referendum that's supposed to fix this. I just don't see how a referendum that is specific to a type of to the method of funding of a transit system or TransLink system serves anybody's interest in the long run. What it does is it's delaying inevitable decision making, it is deferring decision making, and it shows a complete lack of leadership. So, Honourable Speaker, I'd just like to again reiterate, I don't see anything in this bill that would allow a thoughtful person to support it. Thank you.
Seeing no further speakers, Minister to close.
We said to the people of the Lower Mainland we were going to fix the governance. We're going to fix it. We said to the people of the Lower Mainland, you will have a vote. You, as the taxpayer, will have a say if any new funding sources are requested by the Mayor's Council for expansion of transit transportation, and we are going to follow through on that commitment. The referendum date. Been lots of talk about the referendum date. We've demonstrated a tremendous amount of flexibility on this front as well. Instead of insisting on the date being held concurrent with the next municipal election, we said, after receiving a tremendous amount of feedback from the mayors and from others, we said we're willing to enable this referendum to be held concurrent with municipal elections beyond just the next one. And furthermore, as a one-shot special opportunity here, if the mayors choose to hold this referendum prior to or outside of the regular municipal election cycle, they can do so up until June 30th of 2015. Again, demonstrating a significant amount of flexibility there. And last but not least, when it comes to funding levers, funding mechanisms, we have said to the Mayor's Council very clearly that if they believe that new funding sources are required for transportation expansion, funding sources beyond the sources that they currently have available to them today, then again, we're going to make sure that the people of the Lower Mainland have a say. And with respect to the specific funding sources, those new funding sources, I have always preferred to keep things on the table as opposed to taking things off the table. So I've been very consistent in saying to the mayors, work on the plan first. Before you start worrying about how you're going to pay for it, before we start getting too deep into the discussion around are we funding it with this funding lever or that funding lever or this package of funding levers, let's first understand what exactly is it that we're building. You know, very quickly, Honourable Speaker, those ballot measures were referendums that were successful 79% of the time. They had a very clear vision. People have to know what they're being asked to vote on. They have to know what that vision looks like. They have to know what the priorities are in that vision. They have to know what it costs. And they have to know what funding sources are being asked of them to support it, to pay for it. That's exactly what the Mayor's Council are working on right now. Secondly, these successful referendums have a straightforward question. And so my advice to the mayors has been consistently, as you're working on your vision, as you're doing all this hard work, keep in mind, at the end of the day, the referendum can be won if you put that vision to the people and you say, here's what we propose over this particular time frame. These are the projects. This is the total cost. Here's how we pay for it, yes or no. That's a winning referendum question, Honourable Speaker, if you look at the 79% of the time that referendums have been successful in North America. And the sooner the members opposite, the sooner the doubters get behind this and recognize that this is probably the most empowering initiative that we could possibly provide the people of the Lower Mainland to break what has been a logjam for decades, the better. There is nothing more democratic than giving to the people of the region the right to have a say in how their hard-earned dollars is spent on what could be a multi-billion-dollar expansion of transit and transportation. Honourable Speaker, I move second reading.
Honourable member, your question is second reading of Bill 23. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Nay. Ayes get it.
The current government proposes the introduction of referendum to the financing of public transportation. Politicians on the opposition believe that referendum is being misused as a delayed tactic to deflect the government's irresponsibility to adequately fund public transportation. Apart from the potential misuse of referendum, direct democracy by referendum has been well used and supported recently in BC by a significant number of citizens. Meanwhile, remember that direct democracy is possible only when we participate in the legislation of our own rules by referenda.